yeah, I'm in Penge, and I guess I'm feeling the need to make a little video, um, and I just need to follow that sense. So if you want to listen to this, fine. If you don't, fine. This is Penge High Street here next door, or next to where I'm parked. I stayed here for I rented a studio flat here for 6 months when Andrea and I had first split up back in 2001. If you didn't hear me say that on Brian Staveley's show the other night, I think it's probably the first time I've really spoken about that. It was a difficult time for Andrea and I, but we were apart for 8 years. And this Penge was kind of like the start of that period of our lives, of my life. Jessica and Luke and Andrea stayed in the house that we'd been renting up until that point, and I went and stayed on a few sofas until I found myself this place to rent. Later on, I moved up to North London, so it was like an hour and a half drive, and I'd come down every weekend and try and spend time with Jess and Luke. But that was a difficult time for us all. Penge. But in some ways, in many ways, it's not as difficult as the times that we're going through now, because the road that we're walking seems to put us at odds with most of our families. I've spoken to a few people lately, and if you're one of them, this is partly for you. But mother and son, father and daughter, lovers and parents and children are being torn apart by people needing to tell this truth and try to help us all, help those around us to progress. Someone's come and parked up my rear end. I don't know why. Perhaps I'll drive on. I'm just going to pop this in the cradle. Oh, excuse me a second. I didn't mean to give you my hand there. That's a little rude. Sorry about that. Yeah, let's go for a little. Well, I'm going to drive back to the house that we're staying at the moment. We'll take it from there. It feels, why I can relate to all of that is, and why I feel this, I suppose, in myself, is that, my in-laws here, my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law here, have been very kind and generous to us, and they've enabled us to have a Christmas really this year. But there's so much we can't talk about anymore because, they know where I am on things. We turned on the TV actually at home today, which was a first at where we're staying, and Alexander was like, well, initially he was asleep during that period of time, because when he woke up it was like, we couldn't have it on, but we turned on the TV to see if there was anything like that the family could watch that would be humorous or whatever, and an advert came up for Independence Day during this movie called Ice Age. it's the second or the third iteration of the Ice Age. I took took Jess and Luke to see Ice Age, or we got the movie when it first came out, the first one, and we loved it. And of course, back then I believed in all the evolution and so on, so it was fine. And now in the Ice Age story, they're actually, we only saw, it must have been the last minute or 5 minutes of the show, if that, 3 minutes. It was right at somehow at the end, and there was an advert, and in that, all of that, I was, the bits that I was sort of noticing, it was like, shit, there's a lot of space programming coming right here, but you can't talk to people about that because they're so sensitive to you talking about space now, or the non-space, the fakery of space, that it's all Disney Pixar. Space is Disney Pixar. And I thought I'd mention this because guess who's in the show is one of our favorite love to hate, Lords of the Dark, Neil deGrasse Tyson. He plays, because I saw the running credits at the end of it, that's why that was right then. So I didn't hear his voice, I just saw his name. Oh, there's Neil deGrasse Tyson in it, and didn't know that. But guess what? He plays a weasel, which is about perfectly apt for the man. That he plays a weasel. But they are obviously propagating the space thing, the Independence Day thing, and so on. So as I said earlier on, maybe there is an event coming, and that event will perhaps be used to hide some kind of mud flood, or some kind of frequency shift that brings about a change. I'm really bouncing this idea around that, maybe, I know most of the mud flood guys talk about 1820 or 1810 as being the last big shift, but I just wonder whether it's not possible that we have smaller ones that come along, and they hide them in the form of maybe the Gulf War or the World Wars, and then they'll hide it as a bombing campaign, rather to hide the fact that there was a localized event, and then the cleanup team needs to go in after the fact. So yeah, I just kind of offer that as a thought. But this business of my family, my sisters, my father, not communicating with me now, is, 2016 was the year that I laid it out for them, the Christmas 2016, because we were all together. One lives in America, one is in South Africa, and my dad also in South Africa. So we'd all come together here in England, 2016 Christmas, and they knew I'd been going on about 9/11 and flat Earth, but this was the first time we were all together, and yeah, it didn't go well, and I haven't been able to convince anybody that they need to kind of hear this information. And I know now that people are going to learn this information in their own time, not because I decide, but because something has switched for them. I'm not a determiner of that, and perhaps neither too are they. Maybe there's something more going on here. So, and I know other people are going through. I was thinking this, yesterday after chatting with a pal about certain difficulties he's having, and with family. And I realized that this Christmas, there's a lot of people who be laying it down thick for their family, going, listen, I've been in the closet a little bit about this this globe business, but let me tell you, it's not a real. Globes don't float in space, and we're not spinning. So make of that what you will, but I'm saying that the Earth might be flat. Boom! You've ruined the Christmas. And you ruin relationships. People who are meant to be loving and fathers, sons, mothers, daughters. at each other's throats, hating, disliking one another. And we have to realize, I think, that it's hard, but we have to realize that this is probably meant to be as it is. It's not the simple transition of going, all right, there you go, friends. Here's the information. You don't like the government. The government's full of shit. So this might be what's going on. This might be why they've been playing with us. They don't want to hear that. People don't want to hear that. So I've got this kind of Bible verse jangling around in me for a long time now. It has been a long time since I read the Bible as much as I did when I was a youngster. When I was a teenager, I did quite a lot of Bible study, but I went and bought a Bible when I sort of came to Flat Earth for I think Andrea's birthday in 2016. I bought her a leather-bound Bible, which was the first Bible I'd bought in my life. My previous Bibles as a youngster had been given to me, or Bible, so I went and bought a Bible because I said, this is obviously much more important than I realized. And then I went through the phase of going, okay, it's still a book written by my man, and I'm not going to get lost in it. However, I know that there is deep important truth within the covers of our books, our big books. I think that. Is it all disinfo? Is it all misinfo? I don't think so. I think if it were possible for the system controllers to provide us with all misinfo and all disinfo, they wouldn't need to layer it quite so deeply, But I think that there is an ultimate creator to this place, and that ultimate creator to this place is good, or God, if you like. I think that. And I think that this good, or God, creator needs for us to go through this experience. Now, what I'm about to say, I'm not sure is correct. These are just my thoughts. But if you know me, if you've spent enough time listening to me talk, and for most people who've met me, you'll know that my sincerity is total. We may not agree on stuff, but I'm sincere about wanting only the best trajectory for humankind. So I wonder about the nature of this thing, this game, this reality, and why we've been deceived, as we've been asked thousands of times that question. Why would they do it? Why would they create a ball out of a planar thing? Why would they do that? And this Bible verse that's been jangling around in me is actually Matthew 24. Matthew 24, verse 24. And I've sort of paraphrased the verse at times in the street, but I haven't actually gone and read it myself, not since I was a youngster, until today. I went and looked it up. And the verse goes something like, I'm paraphrasing now because, there's different versions of it. But the verse goes something like, I'll summarize it by saying the verse goes something like, in the end of times, the majority of people will be deceived, something along those lines, such that even amongst the elect. Now, I'm not sure who the elect are, but when you look a little bit further into that, you read the verses just before that, there's Matthew's talking about the 144,000. Now I know this is analogous with the Christ oil, the chakra values, and the rising of the chrism, the Christ oil, and the multiplication of by 1,000-fold of the energy or the vibration. So I get that. But if we're the vibration, if we are the vibration, then the 144,000 could also refer to people, souls, individuals who are to be. This is what I found fascinating, reading this, because I'd never really read it since I was a youngster. Was that the 144,000 were to be called from the people, and they were to be like Jesus, these 144,000. Now, as I say, like the Christ energy and so on, if that's us, we have that Christ energy, then, the 144,000 could still be, the internal energy of the chakra system and so on. It could all be that. But it could also be that it's the dark versus light thing. And some of the explanations that I read on these texts today was to do with how the Creator was always wanting things to be in balance. So there would be these 144,000 would be given powers or strengths or abilities that would be impressive, but on the dark side, and this is really where my point is getting to, is that on the dark side, that there would be a sort of equaling of that. This is the key. There'd be an equaling of that. I know this sounds a little bit kind of like, oh my God, this is like all belief stuff, and okay, so it is. But hypothesizing here, okay, that if there's the 100, if, as it says, that God needs to enable the light a little bit more because humans have a propensity for dark. So the dark is going to be showing signs and wonders and doing amazing things, and it's going to bedazzle and excite the majority. Then I guess characters like Neil deGrasse Tyson, who are able to kind of weave their magic, are just part of the course. They're just par for the course. They are what's to be expected in these times, is that these magicians and these powerful darker entities would exist, coexist, and be predominant for a time, until the season changes. And as I said the other day, in some of the things I've been saying, talking about it, when we're talking about seasons and winter through to spring and so on, well, when the Bible talks in terms of seasons, then you think in terms of the 24,000 year clock, and how these seasons change from winter, the dark being the longer, the long nights, versus the spring, longer days and more light. Well, what if there are to be these 144,000 people across the plains who are going to be those lights that have become what the Creator always intended to happen. But if that's the case, then they will come from the ranks of those that can see. And we know that there's not that many that can see, and even amongst those that can see, some can only see a short distance, some can see further. I had a call coming in there. 1 second. Yeah, so I guess the point I'm making there, excuse the interruption. the point I'm making there is that and I realized this the other day, or I suggested this to a friend the other day, that you know, why I've been singing this Hello Darkness My Old Friend song is because what the Bible verse is saying, Matthew is saying, is that whilst, and I never really realized this, I never understood this, but whilst there's to be 144,000 of these light dudesses, there's to be an equal number of dark dudes and dudesses. You know, and again, I've made this reference to Harry Potter. To say, well, look, what if that story is telling us that there is the two schools, or the two teams within the school, if you like, because there is only one creator. And that creator needs, even though Harry Potter, I haven't really watched the movies, but I think that, you know, he's kind of, as usual, he's victorious in the end, you know. He's victorious in the end, but he has to learn. He has to taste the bitterness of the defeat. He has to have things taken from him in order to learn what he doesn't want, what is wrong, or what he doesn't want, and that seems to be our story, is that maybe this is this life toll, this life experience, this discomfiture that we've got to take is part of our learning, but as part of our understanding about it, that the darkness does get to rub shoulders. In fact, the darkness is preeminent. We know that the darkness is preeminent in our world. If it were not, then you would be able to point out the obvious problems with the way that our world is presented to us, and the world would see, and the governments of the world would step back and go, oh, we've got to change it, or we've got to make it different. But of course that's not happening, and that's not going to happen at any time now, or maybe it's just a constant cycle of this story. But I'd like to think that there's this optimistic, you know, return to an Eden kind of thing. But I'm not selling that, and I'm not even suggesting that's the point. That's not the point here. The point is to recognize that. And I think, you know, thinking back upon the Harry Potter analogy, is that Harry Potter doesn't get go this way. Harry Potter doesn't get really angry. He doesn't get angry with the Malfoy character, you know. The Grindelwald, I think, is the name of the dark school, or the dark college, and I don't know the name of his college. I should know it, but Gryffindor. I do know it. I think it's Gryffindor and Grindelwald. I think those are the two. Both of them G's. But you know, you think he doesn't. You know, he's not. I know, obviously they're acting and so on, but the act, he doesn't get angry at the dark so much as realizes that there is this dark, and must, at the right and appointed time, confront it, but will, with the right preparation, be a match and more for it, as is intended by our loving source, our loving creator. So it's not all gloom and doom, my friends, I think, is what I'm trying to say, is that actually, as painful as this story feels at the moment, to be enduring, and I hate to come across all, blue and whatnot. And I do think, am I being affected by my own personal circumstances? Yeah, I think I am, and I think that the reason that I'm having, partly, some days I'm like, just, it's probably because you're not got a job. But the reason all of that is because of what I've discovered. The reason that all of these travails are afflicting other people's lives or other people's personal story is a lot to do with that. It might have a different complexion in one household to another, but really it all comes back to the same root thing of, I know some vital truth, but you shun it, and we are like and clashing over that. So this is, and I mean, even clashing with the system. I don't know. Do I think, you're not meant to be fighting the system in this way. You're meant to be, as I said on Karen's show, you're meant to be kind of dodging it or working around it, working as much as you have to with it, but as little as possible. Or are you meant to be finding this other way? I don't know. And I think the more I think about them, I think it's again, everybody's having their own individual story. I filmed some mud flood earlier on, and I could stop and film some more, but I'm eager to get home to the family. Yep, all of these houses here are basements, sub-street level, at least 2/3 or at least half, and maybe 2/3 of the lower floor is in the ground. And people just move into these and accept the story that they're given, and they're not intentionally deceiving. When the estate agent says this is the story about how these houses came to look like this, he doesn't know any different. That's what he's been told, and he's just being a good repeater. And I think this is comes back to what we're meant to be realizing here is that a grand trick has been played on us all by forces more powerful than us. But that won't always be the case, firstly. And secondly, it's absolutely written. And I never really realized this until this evening or this afternoon when I read this in the book. But it's absolutely written that the 144,000 on the light team are going to be joined by, I have to be sure, I'm not sure about this, but it was like also 144,000 or a similar number or a greater number, I'm not sure, but of those from the dark team, of entities from the dark team. So that means, just by the way, if you're in Flat Earth or any of these other, well, if you see that the Earth is flat and you realize that there is a divine mission here, and if you're one of those whose divine mission is one of light, I don't know how that's quite determined, how you determine that. I'm not saying I have an answer to that, but if you're one of those that sees that there's a divine torch to be carried, on behalf of the Creator, on behalf of humanity, but on behalf of the Creator, be knowing that you have company who are exercised to damp your light. And I see this in Flat Earth, friends. I see this in Flat Earth. I see darkness in Flat Earth, and We may not like it, but I think we have to come to terms with that, actually. I think that the darkness is the old friend. I revile the system, you know. I dislike. It's whatever. It isn't in the human best interest. However, we've chosen it here, you know, and it is in ascendance, and that's just the nature of this beast, the nature of this system is that the beast is in charge, and right now here on Earth, and the beast has its minions among us right now in flat Earth. It seems like that is the case. Harry Potter has to realize that not all of his schoolmates are loving, beautiful souls. You know, who knew? We may all come from the same creator, but we don't all have the same light. That's just unfortunate for me that I've driven into a patch of dark right at the moment when I'm talking about light. But there I am once again coming into the light. I know that, oh, you know, whatever role I have to play, I know that mine is one of bringing the light, bringing the love. You know, not, I mean, that doesn't mean that you have to kind of just accept the machinations of the dark. Oh no. No. But equally, you know in your heart, I think you know in your heart, in your soul, I was talking to Brian Staveley and Karen B the other day about my DMT experience, and when I talked about it, I didn't, you know, didn't have a lot of time, and maybe whatever the constraints and pressures at the moment. But I remembered afterwards how my friend Joey, who's no longer my friend because I refused to, like, after this, I started doing the research and stuff, I realized that Israel wasn't something that I, you know, could really accept, and this status quo of that, and I was kind of like, he asked me, I guess stuff I'd posted on Facebook back in that time. He said, oh, don't you support Israel, or you've got to support Israel against Palestine. And I said, I can't do that. I can't choose sides. I'm not willing to choose a side, and it cost me my friendship with him. Anyway, Joey is a Jewish lad, and we worked together in the nightclub scene back in the mid-90s, and he then spent years, like 15-20 years in the Himalayas, growing massive, you know, like weed, and tattooing his entire body, every part of his body, like his hands and eyelids, I think, his head, everything, neck. And he gave me the DMT, and I smoked it. You know, he led me on the DMT. So Joey grips my hand while I'm going through this, and as I come back, as the fear recedes, and I start to look around me, like I open my eyes and look around. Well, the entire world, the courtyard that I'm in, has just turned from brick to wave. The colors have stayed true. They're much richer than the original colors, but everything's now an electrical wave, and it's like this hum. Anyway, I look over at Joey. Actually, his arm catches me first. He's got those like winding black tattoos up his arms, and where his skin was exposed, it was like sort of orange and crawling, like it was alive, and it was moving. The tattooed part seemed dead, but the other bits were alive and pulsing like this with light. And so I follow up his arm, you know, and I can't move very fast. My movements are slow, and I'm almost kind of paralyzed by this DMT experience. But it's such a like shocking sight. So I follow him up his arm and watch up his arm, and I get to the head, and I promise you, like, I could recognize his eyes, and the kind of structure of his face was similar, but it was like alien. It was like much smaller jaw, and no hair, there's no hair visible or anything like that. It's all light, it's all pulsing. And I can tell that his eyes are friendly, but I can also get the sense, very much the sense that, and this was the sense I came away with. Remember, I hadn't found flat Earth. I knew about 9/11, and I just thought, at that point, I thought governments are just simply, there's some kind of corruption going on there. Just like, like most, it's only about 9/11 kind of guys. That's what they like to think. And of course I was still an atheist. I was only 3 minutes away from the end of my atheism, but at this point I was still an atheist. And this lady caught my eye there, walking her dog. So I didn't know much about much, at that point in time, to be fair. So but I look at this guy, and I think at the time, like, this guy belongs to some sort of, I don't want to say evil, but that would be the wrong word, but like a nefarious group. He belongs to like a nefarious group, but he's going against that group's overarching plan. He's here to help. He's a helper from the other side. And he's Jewish. And the Jewish people in the world today, and I'm not, this is not Jewish bashing, because I'm not about Jewish bashing. Dude just walked past me with his wang pretty much hanging out of his trousers. Where are we going? Anyway, this is not at all am I trying to have a go at pop at Jewish people, because this is not, we are not wrestling with men here. We're wrestling against principalities or something. How does it go? The biblical boys will know this one much better than me, but we are wrestling against principalities, and there is a principality of dark and there's a principality of light, and we are going to walk with the dark up until a point, and then something maybe changes. I don't know when, and if it's like it's all going to be on this earth and there comes an Eden and all this, or it has to do with post life, what goes on beyond that. Because when I had the DMT experience, I was instantly connected to my higher being, to a higher being. Again, I was an atheist before all of this, right? So these were the minutes that changed it all for me, the moments of my life that became the most important. But this friend Joey there was something, and actually his what he resembled, I mean, what was going on for me was beyond anything that I'd ever imagined, anything I'd ever seen on TV, nothing like this. This is not my brain playing tricks on me. This is me seeing something that's there energetically. And he was almost like an alien, like a grey alien face. It's all orange. He's pulsing light and orange. And it's a very thin kind of thing, and I could kind of get the sense of his face. It was, but I reach up to him, and it's barely possible for me to lift up my hand. I'm almost paralyzed, like I said, and I say to him, "What are you? Not who are you, but what are you?" And I ask him this question because it was frightening and and startling at the same time. But now I've learned all of that I've learned. I wonder whether what I wasn't looking at there was a representative of the dark side. And like the chessboard has players on both the dark side and the light side, and both have equal powers. I just wonder whether this isn't what we're seeing, and we have to get used to having the darkness alongside us as we walk towards the final conclusion this story here. Yeah, I was hoping to score a little bit of Christmas cheer, a little bit of something to smoke over the, some cannabis over the Christmas period, but it just hasn't played out for me this year like that. And this is the result. Me thinking like this, people say you're smoking too much weed. No, I'm not smoking enough. So this is what you get. Anyway, friends, I'm going to leave it there, and I hope you have things go well for you, and hang in there. And I'm speaking to myself as much as I am to you, because these times were never designed to be easy for us, whatever the ride that you're taking at the moment. But stay the path. If it feels right, then it's meant to be. And I don't know whether people who are on the dark team get to move to the light team, but I know that the dark team is constantly seducing the light team to come to the dark. So I guess it can go both ways, and if I had the choice, I know I'm choosing love. That's my choice, and that's my gift this Christmas. Take care.